Hello, everyone. My name is Elena G. Levine, and I'm president of Quantum Success Solutions and author of the book Networking for Nerds. Of course, I am absolutely delighted to be here with you today to talk with you about a topic that I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is how we can plan our careers, how we can move our careers, how we can move our community members' careers forward in the middle of a crisis situation. And I want to clarify, I'm going to go over all sorts of details today. I'm going to give you actually a how-to, a step-by-step guide of how to move your career forward. But I want to clarify that the way we're approaching this, the idea of moving our career forward, the way that we are approaching this is a very targeted way that is specifically community-minded. And that's really an important thing to be thinking about. It's what can I do for the community? What can I do to assist you during this challenging time? We're in the middle of multiple crises worldwide, and so it's very important to make sure that we clarify for ourselves what we want to do. And you know what? I know what you want to do. You have an authentic, generous spirit, and you want to help your community. And by helping your community, your scientific community, and even your geographic community, what you're able to do is you're able to create new opportunities for your community members to advance, which ultimately helps everyone in the community, including ourselves. Now, I also recognize that in the middle of multiple crises, we're also dealing with very, very challenging job situations. Of course, we all know the stories. Job opportunities have in many cases dried up. Job offers that were offered a year ago, particularly in the academic job track, they were offered in the spring or the early spring, and then by late spring with university budgets restricting, we found situations where those job offers disappeared. And so colleagues in science, colleagues in the academic career path are finding that the time that they spent over the last year or more has actually led to not a job. So it's a very, very difficult situation. And so I want to be able to help you actually move your career forward. And by moving your career forward, I do mean get you a job. But the beautiful thing about the strategy that I'm going to be talking about with you today is by being clear-headed about our authentic goal of trying to help our community, we will be able to help ourselves. And that's really very important because you know what? I need a job, you need a job, everybody needs a job. We all need money, right? At any time. We need money for our rent, we need money for our food. If you're like me, you have a very healthy cupcake budget, and that costs a lot of money too. And so we have to be mindful of the fact that we actually do need a job at any given time. But you know what? So does everybody in our community. All of our community members need jobs too, and we can help each other. And that's an important thing of what we're going to be talking about today. So, as you know, this is being recorded, and you will have a chance to watch this at a later date. I will be sending you emails about how you can access this. The other thing I want you to be aware of is that if you would like to take photographs of any of the slides, if you would like to tweet anything that I say, you are welcome to do that. If you tweet, if you post, tag me so I can repost and promote you as well. My handle is @ElenaGLevine. And I also encourage you to join me on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is the primary way that I utilize to promote free career planning resources to the scientific and other nerdly communities around the world. And so I want to be able to send you invitations to other webinars, articles, tip sheets, templates, all sorts of different things. So please connect with me on LinkedIn so I can make sure that you are in the know and I'm assisting you in progressing towards your unicorn career. So my LinkedIn profile is Elena G. Levine, and you can easily find that online. I want to thank my partners today. Of course, this is hosted by the American Institute of Physics. I have an amazing collaboration with such an amazing team at AIP. And I want to thank AIP and the partners of the Career Network. Remember, the partners of the Career Network and AIP are your strategic career planning resources and partner throughout the lifetimes of your career. So I want you to really leverage that relationship and the resources that this organization and the partner organizations are offering you. So in particular today, I want to express my appreciation to the American Association of Physicists in Medicine, the American Association of Physics Teachers, AVS Science and Technology, Physics Today, my old stomping ground, and Sigma Pi Sigma. Thank you so much. All right. So what we're talking about today is we're going to be discussing about how to plan our career and move our career forward in the middle of a crisis. And you know, I'm a science communicator. My background is mathematics and physics. Some of you know that I was seduced by the dark side and got my degree in mathematics, so don't tell anybody. But I've always been in the physics community my entire career. I'm a professional speaker. I'm a STEM career consultant. I am a science writer. As I mentioned, I wrote a book called Networking for Nerds. So I've done a lot of different types of outputs and problem solving associated with science communications my entire career. And what I noticed, particularly early in my career when I was doing a lot more public relations for the University of Arizona Physics Department, in fact, that was my very first job after I graduated, what I noticed was I started learning a lot about crisis management and crisis communications. And in the middle of professional crises that we have, as well as personal crises and the merging of the two, which will happen, we can actually draw upon principles from the fields of crisis management and crisis communications to actually help us with our career planning. In fact, not only can it help us with our career planning in the middle of a crisis, but it can actually help us at any point in our career. So that's some of the principles that I'm actually going to be sharing with you today. Because the actions that we take today, the actions that we instill, the principles that we instill in our program, our process of moving our career forward today are actually going to help fortify us for managing and navigating and moving beyond crises tomorrow and in the future. But I think a lot of how we can move forward in our careers really is about being super honest with ourselves and even honoring ourselves. And what I mean by that is what we have to do is think about what do we actually want to do? What do we need to do? What do we, where do we want to work? What is the honesty and the truth about our financial well-being? I'm going to walk you through that stuff as well. And so, and even the types of companies or organizations or universities or fields that you could potentially engage. What I found is the more honest that you are with yourself now, the better you will be to be able to manage yourself through a crisis and weather a crisis, similar to what we are engaged with right now. But I will say that a career plan is necessary in all circumstances. So build a plan now that incorporates elements for resilience, for sustainability, because right now what you will be doing is you're being able to allow yourself to move forward as challenges are presented. Many of you know I'm a runner and I live in Tucson, Arizona, and we have hills, we have mountains. So the runs that I do on a regular basis are often like this. They are up hills and they are down hills, mostly up hills. And so I try as I run up a hill, some days I will run up that hill, some days I will jog, some days I will walk, some days I will crawl, some days I will walk backwards. But every step I take up that hill, I recognize for myself, and I even say this consciously, I recognize that I am giving myself a gift because I am building my muscles to be able to take the next step and to be able to manage and target even higher mountains, to be able to do races and runs that bring me even more physical joy as well as mental joy. And the same thing goes for every challenge that we face in our careers. Every crisis, every challenge, every micro challenge, every macro challenge that we choose to navigate beyond, navigate through, we're giving ourselves a gift because we are building those mental muscles to be able to manage. So I want you to think about this opportunity as a gift. And it's something that I think about a lot, particularly when I face professional challenges. And by the way, I will be answering questions at the end. So if you do have any questions, please throw them into the Q&A panel in the webinar console that you have in front of you. All right, so let me talk to you a little bit about what I actually mean by crisis. Because as I said, there's multiple crises happening right now. So of course, we're aware of the public health crisis happening right now on planet Earth, right? We have the pandemic. This has caused a lot of other crises, right? Uncertainty in the job market and the economy. It's created lack of in-person engagement, which for many of us, the networking portion of that really helps to help us to think about how we can advance our career. It's caused uncertainty in society. And of course, that trickles down to ourselves, which causes personal crises, which could be health-related, family-related, time-related. It could be all sorts of things, as well as career-related. In addition to those crises in the United States, we all know we're also dealing with a lot of magnified conversations about social justice, a long time coming. And so these are multiple environments that cause us stress, that cause us challenges, that cause us that take away time and the mental energy from being able to focus completely on not only the excellence of our work, but the excellence of moving forward in our career. So I want you to be aware that I know where you are. I know what you're feeling. And for some of us, the experience is more magnified, and that's clear. And I'm not mitigating or minimizing your lived experience whatsoever. But I want to acknowledge it, that we're in the middle of an experience that in many cases is quite unprecedented. So what we can do is we can take ownership of our own crises, our own responses to crises as we move forward. Now, many years ago, as I mentioned, I used to work for the University of Arizona. And after I worked for the physics department, I essentially got a promotion in a certain respect and started working for the College of Science, where I managed a master's program that combines science and business. And by the way, that's how I got interested in helping scientists and engineers find, create, land, and keep your dream job and your unicorn career. So everything was wonderful, right? I was running this program, I was teaching entrepreneurship, I was doing all sorts of different things. And then, oh, I don't know what happened. Something like, there was an interesting year there. What was it? Oh yeah, 2008 happened. And many of you remember that magical year when the economy dropped and everybody was laid off, program budgets dried up, and systems and organizations were toppled. And of course, in the middle of that, my program ran out of money and I was laid off. So that was absolutely a personal crisis in the middle of a macro crisis, right? And so when I think back about my layoff and how I navigated beyond that, I realize that the steps that I took to navigate that layoff, that crisis, that micro crisis and a macro crisis, actually has helped me to navigate the COVID crisis. As a professional speaker, I think you've heard me speak about this before, all of my in-person speaking engagements at the beginning of this year suddenly disappeared. They suddenly went away, and I was lost without any potential speaking income for the year. This was a huge amount of income that was now taken away from me. Well, I had to pivot. I had to think about what I could do for organizations that could actually help me to gather income, but also, and here's the thing, and it relates to what I said before, what could I do for my community? Because we were all hurting. And so what I did is I wrote to organizations, clients, former clients, and I said, I can help you during this challenging time. If I can assist you, please let me know. I speak about these topics, which would be useful to your constituents, and I have a lot of experience giving webinars, so I could potentially help you stay connected and still deliver value to your students, your postdocs, your staff, and so forth. And it allowed me to actually move my career forward. And did I need a job? Yes. Did those people need a job? Yes. But did they need something of value that could help them sustain their organizations? Absolutely. And that's what I was trying to do. And that's how I navigated my layoff. So this slide that you see in front of you, which I'm going to actually go into detail for the next moments in our webinar, this is actually how we are all going to navigate this series of challenges that we are facing right now. So this is how I dealt with it. So I'm going to give you the introduction to the story, and then I'll walk you through each of these steps. So the first thing about the layoff was that in my case, I did actually see it coming because I saw that the economy was doing very badly. I saw that we were running out of money. I saw these things. And yet, when it actually happened, when I actually got the notification, oh my goodness, I went crazy because I had been on that campus since I was 17 years old. I went to the school, I went to university there, I started my career there, and now I was in this position. So this was, in some cases, like a devastation to my professional experience. And it was almost like a professional death. It was like suddenly I was cut off from where I had been connected. And so there was a lot of emotion that, of course, were rolling through my mind and my heart at this time. And what I did, and this really draws upon my mathematics background, was I aimed at every step to pull emotion out of it as much as I possibly could. I acknowledged the positive and the negative emotions associated with the layoff, the positive meaning that I could have opportunities for other things, the positive meaning I got all sorts of different skills and networking opportunities and leadership experiences, the negative being, oh my goodness, I don't have a job, what am I gonna do? So what I did was I actually viewed it as a logic problem to solve, that X plus Y plus Z equals a job. And by removing the emotion, acknowledging its existence, and then removing the emotion as much as possible from that logic problem, from that equation that I was aiming to solve, it allowed me to put processes in place to actually move forward. It was like a feedback loop. I could put processes in place to move forward and keep the emotion out of it. And then once I had that situation where I felt emotion, I could then draw upon my process and just keep going and going. And I always returned, every single moment I returned to the record of my achievements, because when you're in a state of despair, when you are in a state of abandonment and sadness and anger and frustration and fear, all of the feelings that I felt during my layoff, and many of us are feeling during these crises that we're facing right now, it's very important to refer back to the facts of who you are. Because what happens is that imposter syndrome will sneak in, and it's very insidious. It will sneak in and start whispering in your ear saying, you know, you're not smart enough to get a job. You're not going to get a job. You're not going, you know, you can't do this, or you're a fraud and people are going to find out you're a fraud. That's what imposter syndrome is. And what we have to do is, we are science educated people, we are engineering educated people, we have to go back to the facts. And by looking at my record of achievement, I was able to actually keep track of that. I also recognized that I had a diversity of skills that I had been honing over my years in experience, and that would actually help me to market myself better and to market myself for more organizations and make me more marketable for jobs, for career opportunities. I then put my marketing materials together. That was my resume, my cover letters, my other statements, my LinkedIn profile. I had a personal board of directors in place. I'm going to tell you more about that, which helped me significantly. I also had been networking for years, so that really helped. I was able to activate my network at that point. I also did a personal wellness check. Again, I'm going to walk you through each of these steps. And ultimately, what I did was I aimed to act entrepreneurially. So what are we? We are career entrepreneurs. That's what we have to be. No matter what career we're in, we are career entrepreneurs. And so it's very, very important. What does an entrepreneur do? An entrepreneur looks for problems that haven't been solved, looks for walls that are impeding innovation that they could potentially knock over, looks for pain points in systems, looks for opportunities where they can add value. And you know what? As career entrepreneurs, that's exactly what we're doing. And really, during a crisis, during crises, during challenging times, that's what we have to do. We have to look for what are problems that exist that may have already existed in the organizations, in the fields, in the professions that we want to work in. And also, what are the new problems, the new challenges that these organizations are facing based on the crises that we are dealing with right now. And by looking at that and looking how we could potentially help them, we are advancing the community, we are advancing that organization, that field, and so forth, and we are also advancing ourselves. The most important thing to manage yourself through a crisis is to have complete compassion for yourself. So as I mentioned, when I run up the hill, sometimes I'm able to run it, sometimes I have to walk it, sometimes I have to crawl, sometimes I crawl while screaming or hysterically crying. But I take every step up, and you know what? That's the best that I can do. And that's fine. There will be days when the best you can do is to get up out of the bed. And that's the best you can do. There will be days and moments, hours, minutes, where the best you can do is respond to one email. And you know what? I'm going to have compassion for myself, and I want you to have compassion for yourself, because there's a great quote that's floating around, and I don't know who actually said this, but it's a very important one. It's not that you're being productive in a pandemic. It's that you're in a pandemic trying to be productive under extreme stressors, under extreme stressful stimuli that we have not had experience with before. So we absolutely have to honor ourselves and be kind to ourselves. All right, so now I'm going to give you some details, and I want to walk you through every step of this. And this is how we're actually going to do our career plan in the crisis. So the first thing I want to do is I actually have to acknowledge the truth that there is both negative and positive emotion that I may be having right now. And admittedly, this is very difficult because a lot of us feel, particularly when we have negative emotions, that they're not valid and that I shouldn't be thinking that, or I should be grateful that I have this opportunity, or I should be grateful for my experience that I had in the past. But you know what? You are a human being. I'm a human being. We're both human nerds. And you know what? Your emotions that you have as a lived human nerd are absolutely valid. They are valuable. They are needed, and they are your human nerd right. And I want you to feel it. If today, if tomorrow, if for months you have been feeling sadness, wave upon waveness of sadness, let me tell you, I understand. I absolutely understand, and I can absolutely empathize. Many of you have heard me talk about this. When my mother passed away almost 3.5 years ago, it was unexpected. It was absolutely unexpected, and my heart broke into a billion shards of glass, each one sharper than the next, each one more painful than the next, And it threw me into a pit of despair. I've even written about this. It threw me into a pit of despair that was like seducing me every moment when I tried to stick my head out of the pit to see some light, to see something positive. It pulled me deeper in. And there was a moment in my life when I was sitting in this despair, this pit of despair, where I saw the walls that you see behind me. I saw the walls and I thought to myself, you know what I want to do right now? I want to take a hammer and I want to take a hammer and just bang holes in the wall. That's what I want to do right now. I am so disturbed. I am so sad. I am so angry. And I sat with that for a moment and I said, you know what? I'm going to get up and I'm going to get that hammer, but I'm not going to bang holes in my wall. I'm going to hang up art. I started hanging up art. And that was the moment that actually transformed me. It was not the only moment, but it was a significant moment. And I think when we acknowledge the human emotions that we have and we aim to do a step forward, a momentary step, what am I going to do in this minute to move myself, to pull myself out of that pit of despair? It can actually help us. And when we do that, not only do we honor ourselves and the people around us, but it allows us to maintain clarity. It allows us to actually see beyond the pit. It allows us to see what's possible for ourselves and to approach things with more creativity and with a more positive attitude, which can ultimately help us. Will there be moments where I'm in that pit of despair in the future? Heck yes, absolutely. And you know what? I'm going to own it. I'm going to give myself space to feel that. But I'm also going to have a process in place to be able to pull myself out of the pit. So we'll talk more about that. It's very important. So, but I want you to know this, and I want you to remember this very, very important fact, that you not having a job, you not having a job offer at this moment in time or in the future has abso-freaking-lutely nothing to do with your value. It is absolutely not tied to who you are. So what you can do is you can act carefully and deliberately every day to engage in self-compassion and self-care, to demonstrate that you have flexibility, strength, and adaptability, and appreciate what you can do day to day. Here's your first step in this process. As the pandemic began to continue and seemed to never end, and I still don't know when exactly it will end, I put a process in place to be able to recognize negative and positive emotion and also to pull myself out so that I could actually move forward. So what I actually did was I put together a notebook for myself, and I really love paper products. I love collecting paper products and pens and Post-it notes from conferences. I know you do too. So I went into my Post-it note drawer and I pulled out a notebook that I had gotten from a conference. In fact, I pulled out a very nice notebook, and I did that purposely because I wanted to honor myself with this project. It was not going to be on scrap paper. And on this notebook, I made a chart. I listed 4 things that I would do every single day so that I could actually keep track and check off what I would do. And you know what 2 of those things were on that list? Take a shower and make my bed. That's what I had on my list, because that was really, really important, particularly while we're working from home. It was really key for me to be able to see that I was able to do that. So what we can do to move forward into the grand scheme of actually getting a job and moving our career forward is start with a list of small, measurable, easy tasks that you can do every day that do not require emotion, that you can actually see progress with. That's very, very important. The next thing we do is we view this process as a logic problem. Now, you know what? You know how to solve problems. You've been solving scientific and engineering problems, and this is an equation. And you know what? It's business, not personal. We have a specific project goal to get a job, to move our career forward. That does not have to be personal. Now, I know you are a human nerd. I'm a human nerd. We're human nerds in this system, right? So it is personal to us, but I want you to think of it like a logic problem, like a business problem, like a scientific or mathematical or engineering problem, which does not require emotion to actually move forward. So this is our logic model here, or logic problem. We're going to start by collecting data about ourselves. Then we're going to start demonstrating and honing our skills in communicating our data. The data that we've collected from our brains is our skill set, our problem-solving abilities, the kinds of jobs and opportunities that we want to pursue and need to pursue. The marketing is the resume, the CV, the cover letters, the research statement, and teaching statement and diversity, equity, and inclusion statement, as well as your LinkedIn profile, as well as the interactions you have with people. Then we want to move to the next step, which is the networking, the finding of the partners. And remember, I've already done a networking for nerds, a virtual networking for nerds webinar for AIP, which you can take a look at and review. And then we want to understand the state of units in this logic problem. I'm going to tell you about that shortly. Then it's only at that point do we start applying for jobs, and then we ultimately get the job. So that's our logic model. So here's the units of consideration. And you can see really that I do think about this. I almost thought about this like the standard model of physics as I was thinking about this and putting this to paper, that this is how I actually think about the world. So we start with units, the fundamental unit in the larger system, which is the individual nerd. And then of course, the individual nerd leads to teams, which leads to the organization. An organization is a university, a company, a association, a nonprofit. It's anything that literally aggregates people together. In the next unit of consideration, the higher level there, is your community. And we all have two communities that we are interacting with and that we serve and are part of. And the first community is our community that is associated with our field. So it could be largely physics, or it could be teaching. And then there's, of course, smaller sub-communities related to our subfields and sub-professions. And then, of course, the other type of community is the geographic community that we are operating in or want to operate in. And then the next unit of consideration, the larger unit, is the ecosystem. And that incorporates the economies, that incorporates governments, that incorporates the larger system that we're looking at. So this is how I see it. When we think about this, it actually helps us to solve the problem. Now, the next step that we have to do to move our career forward is we have to have this record and archive of achievements. Excuse me, just one second. Sorry about that. So we want to make sure that we have a record of achievements, which includes our master CV or resume that we can actually look at, especially when we're in the middle of a crisis or multiple crises. And it also allows us to be able to quickly get our marketing materials out. So your master CV will be on your home device. It will not be on anything that's associated with your work or your schooling that another institution owns. It will only be on your own home device. And you want to keep this updated all the time. So here's the list of things that you want to be thinking about for every experience that you have, whether it's a job, an RA-ship, a TA-ship, whether it's something associated with a project in a class or a leadership role in the community or in your university, or even something else in the community or a job that doesn't maybe seem to have anything to do with research or physics. You want to make a list of all those experiences. And then you want to think, all right, what were the problems that I solved in this experience? Daily, weekly, and monthly. What solutions did I come up with? What were those results of the solutions? And you want to quantify those results. So if I mentored 55 people, I want to write that down. If I developed a social media strategy that increased our Twitter members, our Twitter followers by 50% in the first year or the first month, I want to write that down. If this project or this problem that I solved let me win 2 Nobel Prizes, I want to write that down too. So those numbers are very important because they give us context and significance and actually help us with our marketing. So this skill inventory matrix is actually something you might want to take a picture of. This is how you can keep track, download from your own brain to actually keep track of what it is that you can do with other people and help you to solidify your record of achievements. So you list out all your experiences on the left-hand side, and then after you start identifying the problem, solution, results, you actually want to think about what skills you've gained. So you think about the technical skills, which will be scientific, problem solving associated with experimental design, data collection, theory, and so forth. It could be technology, engineering, techniques, particular machinery, and of course your computing, languages, programs, platforms, and so forth. And then your business skills. Right? And these are just a few of the business skills that you may have gotten. For example, accounting, if you were on a grant, or customer relations or public relations or event managing or project management. Your soft skills, which can include oral and written communications, diplomacy, leadership. And of course, we also want to identify what are our attributes. What did we notice about ourselves from that experience? I'm detail oriented. I work well with a team. I work well independently. You can also, to keep track of your record of achievements, have what's called a SWOT analysis. So strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are intrinsic to us. Opportunities and threats will come extrinsically from our networking and from our research. So going back to our record of achievements, by looking at this record, it will actually help you emotionally, because it will help you to actually see the facts, the scientific facts of what you've done and who you are, and you'll be able to actually rectify that. You can actually compare, all right, I feel really sad because I don't have a job right now, so I feel like I'm not able to get a job. I feel like there's something wrong with me. But wait a second, I have a PhD in physics. I have been a teacher of physics for 15 years. I know physics back and forth. I know how to teach. I know how to communicate. I know how to engage and inspire. I know how to help people problem solve. I want you to remember that. The master resume and CV, the record of achievements, will actually fortify us against the negative emotions and help us to move beyond it. Very, very important. And you also refine these as you gather more information about the ecosystem, about the community, about the organizations, and so forth. The next step you want to be thinking about always is diversify, diversify, diversify. So now if we had a time machine, and I bet you do, I don't have access to one, unfortunately, at least I don't think I do, or maybe I will in the next few minutes when my person from the future comes back to talk to me, but I digress. If I had a time machine, I would go back in time and start not just fortifying my physics and scientific problem solving skills, but I would fortify other skills that would be relevant for problem solving in the future. Since I don't have a time machine or a series of clones at the moment, or maybe I do, I will actually start now. So what I can do right now, we want to diversify our skills because it's very important. If we're going to market ourselves, particularly in a crisis environment, we have to make sure to demonstrate our competitive advantage in helping our audience, helping our constituents, helping our clients or our employers solve problems. So by demonstrating our diversity of skill sets, given the fact that they are facing diversity of problems they perhaps have never faced before, we are actually helping them to move forward, which helps us to move forward. So what we can do right now is we can start thinking a little bit more strategically about what other skills have I gained over the course of getting my physics degree or getting my electrical engineering degree. What other skills could I gain right now? If I joined a committee, for example, if I joined a committee with the American Association of Physicists in Medicine, I would gain leadership experience. That would allow me to diversify my skill set. So diversifying your skill set is very, very important for career exploration, for career marketing, and for career outlooks. So it's useful to know what our primary skills are and also what our supplemental skills are that could potentially help us. So the way you think about how you want to diversify your skills, some of that information will come from networking, admittedly, from talking to people in different organizations and communities and beyond throughout the ecosystem. And you'll be asking them and learning from them what trends are there available right now that are needed to be able to face, what gaps exist. And this also leads to the point about the importance of diversifying your networks. You don't want to just network with physicists who work in hospitals. If you're a physicist in medicine, you want to diversify and network with physicists who are in medicine who work in other types of medical environments. And you also want to network with people who are physicists who are not physicists in medicine, and also network with people who are not physicists, and onward and onward. So right now, the task that I challenge you to think about is, what can I do right now to engage in projects, to engage, whether they're volunteer or not, that will give me the ability to learn and hone a different skill that could potentially be very, very helpful to me in moving forward in the career path that I want to go into, particularly in the middle of a challenging environment. By diversifying our skill set, and by then communicating that diversity, what we're actually doing is we're positioning ourselves for success, not only in the next job, but positioning ourselves for success in the career path that we want to achieve. And we're actually helping our potential future employers. They need a diversity of skills. We can actually provide that. Once we have more data from our brain downloaded and figured out exactly a part of our record of achievements about what it is that we can do, then we start to edit, refine, and prepare our marketing materials with a recognition that these marketing materials are going to be customized primarily, for the most part, for almost any different type of organization and individual that we interact with. For the most part, the LinkedIn profile will primarily stay the same. But we do want to have these marketing materials, templates ready to go, so that when we are engaging somebody, when we are applying for a position, we have it ready. So what you want to do is you want to have your CV if you're looking to go into a research position, of course, and you want to have a resume. A resume is used for opportunities that are not in academia or not in research and development or R&D positions in industry. And I want to be clear about this, the terminology that I'm using, resume versus CV. The way I just described a resume versus a CV, a curriculum vitae, which is used in the United States in particular for academic and research positions. In other nations around the world, and I know we are joined today by people all over the world, and I welcome this. You know I love to network with global nerds. The terminology of curriculum vitae, of CV, of resume is used in different ways. So I've heard the term curriculum vitae refer to a resume in the way the word resume refers to the document in the United States. So it's very important to know the geographic community in which you operate, to know what you should actually have ready. In addition to your resume and or CV, you want to have multiple cover letter templates ready to go that you would send for different types of positions. Your LinkedIn profile, it's absolutely necessary to have a LinkedIn profile, whether you're going into research or not. Your online presence, which might be relevant, which could include your CV, which could be online, your portfolio, social media, your statements, if you're looking to go into research jobs, the research, teaching, diversity, and inclusion statements, and of course your elevator pitches or your value statement. So my task that I challenge you to do today is to get these together, have several versions ready to go, and carefully copy edit them. And I say carefully copy edit them because there is always a situation where I do private career consulting with clients around the world, and then people will send me their resumes to take a look at and help them refine, or their CVs. And almost always there's this case where somebody misspelled the word physics on their resume or CV. It's because we're too close to it. So you can actually ask somebody else to look at it. And you want to use the language of the community and the ecosystem in which you want to operate, and have brand consistency. So if you refer to yourself as Elena G. Levine in your CV, then you, and by the way, don't do this unless your name is Elena G. Levine, but this is how I would do it, because my name is Elena G. Levine. If I refer to myself as Elena G. Levine on my CV, then on my LinkedIn profile, I will be called Elena G. Levine. And on my papers, I will be called Elena G. Levine. And in my social media, and when I write my letters, my cover letters, anywhere, I'm always going to say Elena G. Levine. So that's the brand consistency across platforms. The next thing I want you to be thinking about is your putting together what's called a personal board of directors. And I want to thank Sandra Smith of Brown University, who gave me this term. I had been thinking about a personal board of directors for many years, but it was Sandra who actually gave me that idea of calling it a board of directors. And I absolutely loved that she did that. And I actually wrote about her and developing your personal board of directors in an article for Science Careers. You can read it online for free. It's called A Personal Board of Directors Can Help You Navigate Challenges in Your Career, and it came up earlier this year, so you can read that. So what is a personal board of directors? So board of directors for companies is in charge of the fiduciary success of that company. Are they meeting their goals? Are they meeting their financial milestones to achieve their goals, to contribute to the bottom line of that organization? It's an assembly of people that comes together. They know that they're on this board and they are all serving this purpose. Well, similarly, we all can have our own personal board of directors. But the difference is that our personal board of directors does not actually assemble IRL. They don't actually come together, and they also don't necessarily know of the existence of the board or the other people on the board. Only I do for my own board. So the board of directors comes from networking over time, and it's essentially a group of people in diverse arenas. So in my profession and out of my profession, in organizations I want to work for and out, very diversified. But there are people that over time have shown me that they support me, that they have my back. So they are like mentors. And in fact, some members of my board of directors can include mentors, but they don't have to be as specific as that. They can be more focused in terms of career development, as opposed to mentoring me in the ways of this particular industry or profession. So they don't physically meet, but what's interesting about the personal board of directors is that you can call upon them over the course of your career at many different times to ask them, again, individually. You wouldn't send a mass email, but individually to ask their help, advice, assistance, or guidance in terms of how to manage a crisis, how to move forward. And indeed, when I had my layoff, I activated my board of directors. I reached out to members of my board and said, I'm going to be laid off. I want to get your advice about how to move forward. Thing about board of directors is that you can actually be very honest. You don't have to, you've already built a win-win relationship with them over time. So you're not going to have a board of directors member who you just meet. And also, you're never going to say to somebody, can you be my board of directors? They're actually going to demonstrate that they could be on your board of directors by the interaction they have with you over time, in which they demonstrate that they really, really support you, and they are a cheerleader, they are your champion, they are somebody who wants to see you succeed. So what you can do right now is you can start to think about who were 3 to 4 people. It might be my advisor, if my advisor has shown me that they really, really are on my side. It could be my formal mentor, it could be a peer, it could be a former boss, it could be a current boss. Maybe not a current boss if you're about to lose your job, but it could be all sorts of different people that you've interacted with in the continuum of your life. And start nurturing those relationships now, so that when you have the opportunity, when you need them, you can actually call upon them. And they don't always give you advice that is exactly what you think you should do. When I called upon my board of directors when I was laid off, one of my members said to me, Elena, don't worry about the freelancing. Don't worry about being a speaker. Just go out and get a real job. She actually said, get a real job. And to me, it wasn't that she was being rude or that she wasn't demonstrating that she was on my side. It was that she had a different vision than I did, because she's a different person, right? She's outside the continuum of Elena. So she doesn't know what I'm thinking, what I envision, what I feel. She knows only from her own lived experience how she could potentially help me. Excuse me one second. Sorry about that. Excuse me. And so what she did by telling me to go get a real job actually helped me quite a bit, because it actually lit a fire. It lit a fire in my soul to really go out and say to myself, wait a second, I don't want a real job like the way people normally define a real job. I do want a real job, meaning that it exists in this universe right now, but I want to create my own job. I want to create my own unicorn career. And so she actually helped me in that way. And like I said, she wasn't trying to sabotage me. She was just giving me advice based on her experience. But because I trusted her, I listened. I didn't necessarily take her advice, but I listened. And that's what a board of directors can help you. And then, of course, we're also going to have an ongoing networking plan. So quick points about networking, because you can take a look at the longer webinar. The networking is not me trying to trick you into giving me a job. It's not me trying to get something from you. In fact, a lot of scientists and engineers think, I don't want to engage in networking because it takes away time from the excellence of my work. And in actuality, networking is the absolute opposite of that. It's the most honorable endeavor in which you can engage, because networking is all about the generous spirit of what can I do for you? What can I do to inject value into your organization? How can I help you to achieve your goals? How can I help you to approach and meet the unique challenges that we're facing right now? So networking is about crafting long-term win-win partnerships where there's an exchange of value with different people, between the individual parties over time. We are investing in the long-haul relationship. So what we want to do with your networking plan is you want to actually network. And I keep mentioning that other webinar because I actually give you a step-by-step guide of actually how to network. So take a look at that. But plan to have meaningful conversations with people in your network throughout your career. And what I like to do when I think about launching a networking strategy is I always start with a number. I usually start with the number 10. This is a number that I use as my baseline. It's a realistic number. This is what I use with the number 10. I think about, I can reach out to 10, this is my goal, I'm going to reach out to 10 new people each month or every 2 weeks. Because I can absolutely send 10 emails in 2 weeks. That's definitely realistic for me. Some weeks I might not be able to do that, so I'm going to reduce it. Other weeks, other months, I might be able to do more. Start with the number 10. And then you think about how many people can you actually reach out to. Each of these people, you're going to be asking them, can I meet you to have a 15-minute phone, Skype, WhatsApp, Zoom appointment? I want to learn more about what you're working on. I want to explore the potential to collaborate. I want to see how I might be able to assist you during this challenging time. I want to learn how I can position myself for success in this industry. I'm early in my career exploration, or I'm considering my next career opportunities. If you're looking to pivot, these are the types of phrases that you can employ. Ultimately, you want to see what you can do to help them. And you actually can say that. And that's what I said in my emails too. So that's the basis of the networking plan. So I just want to remind you that we have the opportunity, if you want, to give me some questions. I think some of you have already given that, and I will be taking them at the end. So the next step in our career planning guide, our career planning strategy, is to do an ecosystem health check. So the larger level health check to see what is going on with the ecosystem. So we want to take a look at industry clusters. Thank you. We want to look at industry clusters that are, you may have heard the term hubs, or what essentially an industry cluster is a critical mass of like-minded industries, like-minded companies, like-minded organizations, and here's the kicker, in a particular geographic region. This is an important thing. So examples of industry clusters, particularly in the tech sector, include biotech in Boston, the chemical industry or the pharmaceutical industry in my home state of New Jersey, high tech in Silicon Valley, high tech in Bangalore and Mumbai, and of course in Tucson where I live, we have a lot of optics and photonics companies. So let me use Tucson as an example, and this is how we do an ecosystem health check. When you have a critical mass of companies in a region, like in Tucson where we have optics companies and we have spin-offs of optics companies from the university, which is a very well-known optics program and College of Optical Sciences, which feeds the sector. What you have is a large number of organizations and a large number of people who serve those organizations in this particular geographic region. The representatives of those organizations come together to form usually a professional association. So in Tucson, the association used to be called the Arizona Optics Industry Association, and they had board meetings and they knew about jobs and they knew about how the economy was impacting the optics industry in Tucson and worldwide, and they knew which companies were expanding, which companies got contracts from the government, which companies were about to lay off, which new companies were going to have set up shop in Tucson. In other words, you can do an ecosystem and an economic health check by engaging the industry clusters in the region that you want to work in, and also related to that, engaging the industry clusters worldwide of the sector that you want to be involved in. So if you wanted to be in biotech, to know where the different industry clusters of biotech are located around the world would be very, very useful. You also want to be thinking about engaging. So you can go online and find these industry clusters. They're usually just called industry clusters, to see what are the industry clusters in the region that you want to be in, the industry clusters that you want to work in, where are they located around the world. You can also engage chambers of commerce, which are organizations locally that serve the business community. You can look at what are called economic indicator publications and also business publications, both at the international and national scale, as well as the regional and local scale. And so aim to keep yourself apprised of the various aspects of the economic health of the ecosystem by looking at these different resources. And this is something, honestly, that you should practice throughout your career, but it's very useful right now, especially. We also need to do a financial wellness check, of course. So we need to know a couple of things. We need to know how much money I'm spending and on what, where am I getting that money from? How do I get access to that money? How much money do I have access to, and how much does it actually cost to live where I am right now? So this is where honesty really comes in handy, because we want to be clear. How much money are we spending on food, on transportation? Maybe right now it's not that big of a deal. For some of us, that's not the case. Maybe we have children, so we have childcare that we have to pay for. We have considerations associated with the educational concerns of our kids that we have to pay for. Maybe clothing, housing, cupcakes, whatever it is, make that list. And think about, go do an analysis. How much do you spend each month on these things? Look at your former bank statements and credit card statements over the last year and see how much you spent. We're 8 months into this pandemic. 7 months into this pandemic. And so now is a great time to see how your spending and your costs have changed over the lifetime of the pandemic. And then you want to be thinking about, all right, what money do I actually have right now? And where is this money? Is it in actual cash and savings in my bank? Is it in credit cards? Is it from my family and my friends who have generously stated that they will actually cover my expenses? And then you compare it again to the cost. And then you think about, all right, how long can I go without a paycheck? I believe data is very, very important when we're doing career planning. And so by doing a financial health check for yourself, for your family, and being honest about it, you can actually figure out, all right, I've recognized that if I don't have a job right now, based on my costs, based on my expenses and the income that I have from various sources and where I can get access to it and how and when, I actually can go 4 months without a paycheck. Well, you know what? That's fantastic, because that allows you to put your networking plan, adjust your networking plan based on those parameters. So I suggested you start with 10 people that you reach out to every 2 weeks. Well, you might actually increase that. If you only have 4 months, you might actually do 10 each week or 15 each week, with the knowledge that you won't necessarily have all of these different conversations with people every single week. You're just setting up the process of actually being able to network with them and build that relationship with them at a later time. So the financial health check, very, very helpful. So I think when we think about career planning, what it means is that we have to have compassion, we have to have kindness for ourselves, we have to have patience, we have to have gratitude for the seemingly small actions that we take, as well as gratitude for the larger actions that we can take. If we're able to take a shower, make our bed, have 3 actual meals as opposed to eating like a box of Cracker Jacks and like half a bag of like Cheetos as a meal, like if you were able to do something other than that, that might be on your list. I think that's excellent. So I'm going to have gratitude to myself that I was able to make that achievement. And I think that's important when we're doing career planning. To maintain compassion for ourselves, in conclusion, it's important to recognize that it is not easy to weather one crisis. It's not easy to weather multiple crises. It's not easy to weather multiple crises that are macro in nature as well as micro in nature, and how they interact with each other, which creates more challenges for all of us. So acknowledge that you are working in an extremely difficult situation right now. And recognize that there will seem like there are more downs than ups for long stretches of time. But by having the processes and the plans that I've suggested to you in place, you can actually keep moving forward to objectively focus on the logic problem that you're trying to solve, that I need to get a job. And yet, even with all this, you will stumble. So you know what we do? We adjust our processes. We change them up. We're flexible, we're adaptive, and we recognize today, this is the best I can do. We're going to be kind to ourselves, because for every move that you make, you are gathering data about yourself and the system. You are developing stronger skills of all kinds, especially your marketing skills, and you are moving one step forward to helping your community weather a challenging crisis like we have never seen before. And isn't that what it's all about? One of my favorite races that I ever ran was last fall. It was a 10K, and I was running it with my running buddy, and we're notoriously slow. We were slow, so slow on this race. We were the last people to cross the finish line. And we were so slow that we had a police escort, because we were running on a main road. We had a police escort to drive with us to make sure we weren't hit by a car. And we were so slow that that police escort had to be relieved by another police escort before we actually got to the finish line. And you know what? That was the best that I could do today. But I took every step forward. I kept moving every step forward, because I knew that with every step I was building strength for myself, both physically and mentally and emotionally, which would allow me to do even better in the next race. But here's an interesting side note about that story. I showed up, right? I went to that race. I did my absolute best. There weren't that many people in that race. And for the first time, I actually took first place in my age group. What? Yes! It pays to show up. It pays to do your best. It pays to be who you are. That's the important thing about career planning. So I want to thank you so much. This has been my privilege, my honor, my great pleasure. As you know, I want to thank my colleagues at the American Institute of Physics and the partners of the Career Network, the American Association of Physicists in Medicine, the American Association of Physics Teachers, AVS Science and Technology, Physics Today, and Sigma Pi Sigma. You are welcome to continue tweeting and continue posting. Join me on LinkedIn, Elena G. Levine. That's who I am on Twitter. That's who I am on LinkedIn. And now I'm going to take your questions to see how I can help you. I'm going to stick around for a few more minutes to take your questions. I'm going to take off my new glasses to read them. So hold on 1 second. I have to take my glasses off. Okay. So Kuspu, and I hope I'm pronouncing your correctly, asks a wonderful question, and I really appreciate this question. Kuspu asks, international students in the US have an extra level of stress regarding maintaining their legal status in the country. Do you have any advice for us? And thank you for that important question. Not only is that an important question, but it's a relevant question for all of us, for all of our colleagues, for ourselves, everywhere. So first of all, I want to say, I appreciate that you asked the question. I appreciate all of the international scholars, all of the international students who are working so hard to demonstrate your contribution to society, to demonstrate your value to human society as scientists, as engineers, as science and engineering educated professionals. It's magnificent. And I apologize on behalf of other people on this planet that this is more of a challenge, particularly for international students in the US. I think the way we can manage this, the way we can navigate this is, first of all, a lot of it is not in our hands, right? Laws, policies, politics come into play. We don't actually individually have ability to change that at the moment in real time. But what we can do is, honestly, by engaging our network, by doing that strategic networking that I'm talking about, by utilizing and activating our networks, by utilizing and activating our board of directors, what we're doing is not only are we learning more about the ecosystems and the organizations that could potentially employ us, but we're also promoting ourselves. When you network, you are doing appropriate self-promotion. You are communicating your value to the other organization, to that individual, so that when they get a chance to see how amazing you are, Kuspu, they are really thrilled about what you can do. They understand your intelligence, your talent, your experience, your knowledge, and so forth. And they start to think, wow, we would really benefit with this amazing nerd on our team. And they could potentially help you to solve the immigration and green card and other types of issues that you might be trying to solve on your own. Admittedly, it's not an easy solution. There's not a one-fit-all solution that I can provide for you. But what I can say is that networking can actually help to fortify. So what I'd absolutely recommend is to consider doing more networking right now, so that more people in the community get to know you and who you are, so that when the opportunity comes up, they will move mountains and they will actually do what they need to do to get you on their team. So it's a great question and I appreciate it. I want to see, we have a couple of other questions too. Hold on just one second. So one person, Pratik, thank you, or Pratik, I hope I'm not pronouncing your name right. I really do apologize if I mispronounce your name. My name is notoriously mispronounced. I'm Elena, and I've been called Alana, Aliana, and my favorite is Aniala, which is my name backwards. So I hope that I don't pronounce your name backwards, but if I mispronounce it, please accept my sincere apologies. So this person asks, what do you think of entrance exams for jobs if that is the only way to get a job? Well, it depends on the job, it depends on the job category, the profession. It also depends on the nation in which you're operating. For the most part, in the United States, for example, the type of jobs that you will be getting, whether it's a teacher, if it's a physicist working at a hospital or a medical center, if it's a physics professor, if it's a person who's going to be doing scientific problem solving for a private or public company, generally there is not an entrance exam. So that is not very commonplace. If an organization is asking you for an entrance exam because they want to test your skill set in a particular technical skill, I could understand that, but I would have to be thinking about it on a case-by-case basis. So unfortunately, I can't give you a catch-all answer for that. What I can say is that it's not very common. But if it's the only way that you can get a job and it doesn't actually require you too much effort to do, then it's up to you whether or not you want to do that. And that's an important part of career planning, is recognizing that you, not me, are in the driver's seat of your career. You're the one in the power position. It's your career, so you get to decide. So unfortunately, we're out of time for questions, but I want to let you know that if you do have additional ones, you are welcome to email me. My email address is elena@elenalevine.com. And I couldn't end this webinar without expressing appreciation for two organizations, I should say. One organization is, of course, to the global nerds that you have been with me on this webinar and the others. It is truly, I can't even tell you what a privilege it is to be able to be in this position, to speak with you, to work with you, to be able to help you achieve your goals. It means so much to me. I don't take it lightly, and I want you to know that. So I thank you for being here. And I also want to thank my amazing, amazing collaborators, Bonnie, Liam, and Kelly of the American Institute of Physics and the Career Partners Network. You guys are just tremendous. Such a pleasure to be able to work with you. And it really just brings me such intellectual and emotional joy to be able to collaborate with you on a regular basis. And it's those people, it's Bonnie, it's Kelly, it's Liam, who make the AIP Career Partners Network as successful as it is. So a round of applause for you, a round of applause for the Global Nerds. I can't wait to see what you all decide to do for your unicorn career. Thank you so much, everyone.